How's it going, everybody? I'm Dave Glavin, an aspiring NBA salary cap strategist, and today I'm going to be discussing the San Antonio Spurs salary cap sheet, specifically where they stand after the De'Aaron Fox trade and extension, who they brought in this offseason, as well as some upcoming extension candidates. As far as their finances, they sit about $8 million below the tax. I don't expect them to go over that this season. They're hard capped at the first apron, about 12.3 million below that. That's from acquiring Luke Cornett with most of their non-tax mid-level exception. They've got about 45 million in expiring money. We'll go over in a bit who can be extended, but Harrison Barnes, Kelly Olynyk, Jeremy Sohan, and a couple of vet minimums on the back end, Lindy Waters III and Jordan McLaughlin, will all be coming off the books next season. They control most of their draft picks outside of 2027, which they sent to Sacramento in the Fox deal. They've got a couple of swaps coming in this season from Atlanta, back from the Dejounte Murray deal. Boston in 28 from trading Derek White. 2030, they got Minnesota and Dallas. And then 31, they have Sacramento, as well as a Minnesota first that season. They've done a really good job of getting involved to help facilitate trades and coming away with some pretty valuable assets in the process. They still have access to the non-tax mid-level exception, some of it at least, just about $3 million, and the full biannual exception. One thing I'd like to address to start is Mitch Johnson. Obviously not easy last season, having to step up with Pop being sidelined with the health issue. But I think this is a big year in terms of his long-term future with the organization. They seem to be fast-tracking their timeline a bit with Victor, and I don't really blame them given his ability and his skill already. I'm not sure if it's also motivated by that they don't think he'll have a long career. I'm not sure, but they're going to expect a significant improvement from last year's 34 and 48 season, barring any major injuries. Obviously, Victor went down, so you can't expect them to perform at that high of a level last season. But every team has an identity, every great team. So can they begin to kind of form theirs? I think theirs will start on the defensive end, just given his presence there. But definitely need to be more consistent offensively. They haven't won more than 35 games since the 2018-19 season. I do like their chances to get above that mark this season, despite a deep Western Conference. Most of their team metrics from last season were pretty underwhelming on both ends. They were bottom 10 in points per possession, expected field goal percentage, and offensive rebound percentage. They did take care of the ball on offense and were pretty disciplined defensively, didn't foul a ton, which I think is encouraging for a young team. But with a guy like Victor protecting the paint, I think there's no reason to not be aggressive. They didn't generate a ton of turnovers, so I'd like to see some improvement there. Victor's a walking top 5 defense, and he's one of, if not the best paint presences in the league already. So the perimeter guys will have to have the ability to get aggressive. They're not going to get burned when they have him backing them up. So really solid transition team last season. I think they'll play into that a little bit more as Fox gets acclimated. He's probably the fastest player in the NBA, so that's going to play to his strengths. Speaking of Fox, I wasn't a fan of the trade when they first made it, and I know the extension was a part of the trade, but they did complete that this offseason. They were 21 and 25 when they made the move. Obviously, they don't expect Victor to go down, but that's a significant sample size, and they knew they had a lot more holes than that, than just point guard. They were projected to have 2 lottery picks, theirs and Atlanta's. Again, it's difficult to project getting lucky and moving up to number 2, but in a draft like the one we just had, where it's extremely top heavy, not necessarily top heavy, but there's a ton of star power, potential star power at the top. Why not put yourself in the best position to get one of those guys? And so this point really doesn't matter as much because they were lucky and they ended up with Harper. But after moving for and trading for Fox, you're inviting disagreement over touches, and you're kind of stunting his development already by having him play behind Fox, who I don't want to get this misconstrued, but he's a really good and talented NBA player. I just don't see the fit on this team timeline or play style wise. If Harper buys into that 6-man role this season and learning from De'Aaron, I'm going to look like an idiot, but I'm of the belief that if I'm drafting a guy number 2, he has to start. We have to get that development process going immediately, and he's going to have a chance to make mistakes and grow. And I don't think that can be done as quickly coming off the bench, but we'll see there. Fox's first look is to score and not distribute. And he's not a bad distributor, and he's really good at putting the ball in the bucket, especially in the clutch. I do see the potential of the pick and roll, but it's just not a guy, given this team's youth, that I'm going to send 3 first-round picks out for, especially given his inconsistency from deep. I will say his assist percentage in the small sample size with San Antonio, I think it was 17, 18 games. It was at a career high. His defensive shortcomings are going to be covered by Victor. But again, just you have Rookie of the Year Stephon Castle, who can't shoot yet, at least. So I'm not too encouraged by that as your backcourt in a modern NBA offense. They gave him the 4-year, $229 max this offseason. And in this cap environment where you really can't miss on large contracts, that worries me. I don't think he's a max player. Maybe in the last CBA when, if you're a fringe all-star, you get a max. You have to be a lot more careful. And it's not going to affect them severely because they have so many guys on rookie deals. But at the back end of that contract, I'm not encouraged. And he might not even be on the team by then, but I'm not. I know it's a part of trading for him, but not too happy with that deal. Mentioned Castle. Kind of where does he fit into all this, especially with drafting Harper? Assuming Harper comes off the bench, your backcourt's not going to be able to shoot with Fox and Castle. And I think this all but confirms a permanent move to the bench for Jeremy Sohan, just given that they're going to need their wings to be able to be threats from deep. Speaking of Sohan, the deadline for him to extend with the team is October 20th. I don't expect the deal to get done, as he's had kind of an inconsistent role during his time there. He's struggled to put together multiple healthy seasons in a row. Missed 26 games his rookie year and 28 last season. So I expect him to come off the bench. Solid defensive player, a little bit all over the place offensively, but they did add Carter Bryant from Arizona in the draft at pick 14. Really like what he brings on the defensive end. He's insanely athletic. He does need to be more consistent offensively, specifically from deep as well, but hasn't even stepped on the court yet for a regular season game, so going to give him some time there. Other offseason additions, Luke Cornett picked him up on a 4-year, $40.7 million deal. This is essentially a 2-year deal. There's only $2.5 roughly million guaranteed in year 3, and year 4 is fully non-guaranteed. They picked up Kelly Olynyk for Malachi Branham in a second. Branham really never panned out from Ohio State. Wasn't able to defend, and shot wasn't falling as it should have. So moving on from him, bringing in a vet, Olynyk, a good locker room guy. Could see him potentially getting moved at the deadline or bought out. They added a few minimum contracts on the back end in Jordan McLaughlin and Lindy Waters III. A couple of vets to round out the rotation. I know Waters is a little bit younger, good shooter. But I think these are solid additions for a younger team. I expect the starting lineup to be Fox, Vassell, Castle, Barnes, and Wembanyama, with a bench unit of Harper, Keldon Johnson, Carter Bryant, Jeremy Sohan, Luke Cornett, and then some Julian Champagnie and Kelly Olynyk minutes sprinkled in there as well. Their ability to shoot from deep really concerns me. I've mentioned it a couple times. Defensively, they're going to be really solid, given Wemby's ability. And you've got solid defenders in Castle and Bryant, Sohan, Cornett, really solid defender. I like what Champagnie brings. I think he could kind of fit that Harrison Barnes mold past this season. Barnes pretty consistent. He's going to be able to shoot high 30s from 3. If Vassell's able to become a 42% three-point shooter, that really makes their offense a bit more dynamic. I know Wembanyama was kind of middle of the road. He upped it to about 36%. If he continues getting better from deep, that would be massive. He does shoot it a bunch. I expect that to come down a little bit this season, but I don't think this is a playoff team in the West, and that's nothing wrong with that given their youth. But it doesn't really make sense, again, why they traded for Fox. I'm watching his trade eligibility pretty closely. He becomes eligible the day before the trade deadline. I think that's important to note. On the other hand, given that they invested the assets they did to bring him in and extend him, are they a team that's buying at the deadline? My brain says no, but with that Fox move, who knows if they're a potential Lauri Markkanen destination. I don't believe the younger guys like Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan are really a part of the long-term core, and I'm not totally sold on Castle either, given that they got Harper. But obviously Barnes and Olynyk, they're on the back end of their careers, so could look to get some value there. But kind of a weird team, given the mix of vets and young guys, but could see it clicking just given how strong they'll be defensively, assuming Wemby's healthy. And really excited to see what Harper can do. I think that pairing long term, Wembanyama and Harper, is something to be really excited about if you're a Spurs fan. But Harper's just got to get the chance to develop and make mistakes. And Fox is going to cloud that a bit. Appreciate anyone who tuned in. I'm going to be back with a bit of a different video tomorrow reacting to the annual GM survey. So look out for that. Thank you.